Hey YouTube, today's project, this is an indoor project. We are looking at the stove in the kitchen. This range works great for us, but I've got a problem. My largest burner right here up front. Sometimes when we're using it, and we've got its control turned down to 3 or 4 or 2, somewhere down in here, it will go up to high, it'll go up to full blast, and stay there, and boil or try to burn whatever we're cooking. So with a bit of reading online, it looks like the issue is with the control, and so I've got a new control and we're going to install that. Now this is a drop-in range, sets into the counter as you can see, and in my case it was actually caulked in. I broke the seal with my putty knife, got all the caulk off, and now, as you can see, it lifts out. So what we're going to do first, of course, is go and pull the breaker or the fuse so this thing doesn't have 240 volts going to it. This house is a little bit old. We have a fuse box, and we have this fuse right here, which is labeled, I think you can see it, cooktop. That's our fuse. So we'll pull that, and we'll go. This is where we double check that we've killed the power to this thing. Turn the burners on. Our unit on light does not light up, and the burners are not getting hot. So we're ready to lift her out of the counter now, and I'm going to move it to the tripod to do that. Now if you've got a stove similar to this, if you've got a range similar to this, it may be held in with brackets on the underside, in which case you're just going to back those out. Once you backed them out, the range is not terribly heavy. I'm just going to lift it out and turn it a little bit so that I have access to the front edge. What I need to do is take these screws out that are along the front and rear edges of the range. Those are just, looks like simple Phillips head screws. So I'm going to go ahead and start taking screws out. Forgive the shakiness, I'm trying to get the best shot here. These are some all my screws are out now. So I'm going to pull my white knobs off there. Now the whole top lifts off the stove. Do remember that that top is glass. So set it somewhere safe, and if you got kids running around, set it somewhere where they're not going to step on it or knock it over or anything like that. So now our work area is going to be right over here, and I need to change this control. There's 2 more screws on the front, 2 more screws on the back, and then there are 2 screws holding each of our controls in. This probably is a good time to take a look at the replacement control. That might tell us a little bit about how to expect this thing to be installed. This part, by the way, is GE renewal part WB23MA. We'll throw that in the description of the video. But there's what the barcode on it looks like. And here's what our control looks like. As with many of these GE replacement parts, you can see that there are several screw holes. This probably fits a variety of different stoves with different configurations with the screwing in. So that's just something to be aware of there. Orientation is going to be important when we go to install this in our stove, and you want to make sure you know where the off position is. The pointer on the knob points to the left on our stove when the unit is turned off, and high is right there, and then that is low, and then back to off. So the way we're going to mount this thing is actually just exactly the way that I'm holding it. Before we can do that, we've got to take a couple of more screws out. And of course, be careful around the burners. The heating elements, they're kind of thin, they can be fragile, and you don't want to end up creating another problem while you're solving the problem that you set out to resolve. And it's never any fun to have to purchase more parts to repair something that you broke while you're performing the initial repair, right? So we're just taking out these screws. I believe what's going to happen is I'm going to be able to lift this piece up. Yep, there we go. There we go. Right here, you can see each of the controls. Now comes the part where we need to pay attention to how the wires are connected. Now, the way it looks to me, this red wire, it connects to each of the controls and then to the big bright orange light that indicates that the unit is on. And so what we've got is we've got the blue wire here, then the red, then the black over there, and then we have the longer blue wire connected to this spade down here, and the purple one right there. So if we take a look at our new control, I'm going to go blue, red, black, longer blue, purple. Alright, that's the setup. I'm going to take these two screws out that are on either side of the shaft on the controller, and then I'm going to start moving the wires over one by one. Okay, so here we go. Taking out two screws that hold this control in. One and two. With our control free, I'm going to start moving wires over. Let's start with the purple wire because it seems to be the most accessible. Make things a bit easier, I grabbed a pair of pliers. Should make it a bit easier to grasp and pull these lugs off here. So there's our longer blue wire. And black. And finally the shorter blue wire. I'm just using my flat screwdriver and give me something to push against. Now our longer blue wire is going to go back on. Just like that. Let's see if I can put the camera in a little closer. Black wire is going to go on next, like so. And our control is completely installed now. All the wires are in. Now we're just going to maneuver it right back down here into its hole on the control panel. I'll pull you back out just a little bit. There we are. Now we've got to put our screws back on that hold this control in place. Bringing it a little closer to level seems to be the trick to making it just a bit easier to not drop the screws. And there we are. Now, that's taken care of. We'll go ahead and set our control panel back in here. Our two on the front. Do our two on the back. You're about ready to put the glass top back on, but I wanted to point this out. Do make sure that if you jostled a little bit, that all of your heating elements are on their pegs. It would be bad for you to get this whole thing back together and then have one of them being, you know, a bit off kilter. So just double check that all of them are on their little spring-loaded pegs that keep everything in place. There we go. Now it's time to put our glass top back on. For the top to go back on it, here's the top. Just going to set it back into place. This is a good time to mention, you know, that the edges of this sheet metal can be sharp, so just be careful you don't cut yourself up too badly. It's not a good home project if you don't draw a little blood, right? But be careful. The most challenging part, of course, is getting all of your control shafts lined up into the holes in the top. I'm off just a little bit, so I'm going to get down here where I can see what I'm doing better. Our top is on now. Pushing it all the way down. Now we're ready to put our screws back in. So now the whole unit can set back into the counter. Lower one edge in and then reach under. Slowly drop it into the space. As I mentioned at the top of the video, this one was set in with caulk, and so that means that I'm going to need to go to my local Home Depot or Lowe's, pick myself up a tube of beige colored caulk to go ahead and glue it back in with. Put the knobs back on here. Well, now it's time to go put the fuse back in and turn it on and make sure that it works. Now do yourself a favor, and before you put the fuse back in, make sure all 4 of your knobs are in the off position. Here's our fuse. Make sure you've got it turned right. Of course, if you've got a breaker, you're just going to throw the breaker. Way easier than this. I'll push that back in. Now we're going to head back. Now we double check that the unit turns on when we, hey, look at that, we have a red light on our unit on right there. And our burner is heating up. In fact, I'm not going to be able to keep my hand very close. There we are. Alright, so our burner turns on there, and our hot surface lamp is lit, as it should be, to indicate that the surface is still hot even after we turn the burner off. And just for good measure, I'm going to test all 4 of the burners, make sure every one of them still, turns on, turns orange or red. And they do. And I'm going to turn those 4 off. And of course the problem that we have with the old control was so intermittent that it's going to be really hard for us to test. But if I do turn it down, you can see that it's going to start cycling off and on. Crank it back up a little bit here. It's going to turn red again like that. So it appears that we have this one solved. I'll include the model number in the video's description. I'll also include the model number of the replacement part in the video's description. Thanks for watching. If this has been helpful to you, why don't you hit the like button or leave me a comment. Love to hear from you.